Hey everybody, it's Andre Shirdan, and my special guest today is a friend, which I always like having friends on here, and it's Teresa Duncan from Odyssey Management. And so you guys know, I'll do a little introduction. I know her so well. It's weird to introduce her, but Teresa's got over 20 years in the healthcare industry, and she is my go-to expert for AR and anything that has to do with insurance and the methods of insurance. I mean, she's that kind of person for me. She's the author of a great book. I've got a couple of them over here in my bookcase. The book's called "Moving Your Patients to Yes." All right, and it's easing insurance conversations. And she has a fantastic newsletter, which I have to say, of all the newsletters I get, I think I must read this one cover to cover or top to bottom. And she also has a podcast called Nobody Told Me. And I've actually been a guest, so we'll have to link that in the notes here too. And we were talking before we started recording, and I wanted to remember this. We met 10 years ago, almost to the day, but close, at the Greater New York Dental Meeting at one of my favorite places in the whole world, which is the Marriott Marquis. I just love that place, although I have a place in New York. And it's been 10 years. So, Teresa, thanks for doing this with me today.
I appreciate you inviting me on. 10 years has really flown by. Holy cow. And big shout out to Ginny Hegarty, because I believe she's the one who introduced us.
She is.
Yeah.
So that's our triangle of information. You know, it's like 5 degrees of separation for her. That's
exactly.
Just 1 degree. And Jenny's probably the nexus of so many relationships in dentistry. So I'm glad she got us to hook up. So thank you for taking the opportunity to do this. You know, and what I want to talk about is this fork in the road that most of us in dentistry have reached. You know, I came into dentistry from way outside the industry, and I worked at the front desk. And what I wanted to kind of challenge all my guests with is to kind of look at the person who's standing at that fork and say, who was I before? Who am I now? And I kind of compare yourself to who you were in the office and who you are now helping offices. And kind of talk about that for a little while. And then I want to talk about a couple other things. So give me a sense of who you were before and who you are now.
I was an evolving office manager in my office before the fork. So I did every role in the office, right? So, I mean, everything that you could do in an office, and I settled in as the office manager. And I even had a little mini fork there because I was a very meticulous, driven, almost a little bit like a high D. If you were to do the DISC profile, very high D. Then when my son was born, I realized I had no control over anything. And I went to a high I, which is intuitive. And so I became a more understanding, a more strategic, a more, just a different type of manager. And it was a good fit for me. So the first iteration of Teresa as a manager could never have done what I'm doing now, because she was very much my way or the highway. You know, you need to do it this way because this is the best way. It was not a great version of myself, although I got stuff done, right? So now let's fast forward to where right before the fork, I remember taking a lot of CE classes. My boss, I was blessed with a wonderful boss who believed in CE for himself, for his team. I took so much CE, which is kind of a shame that I don't have anything to show for it from that point. I mean, I know now you can get fellowship with ADOM and all that, but I just had all these blank certificates, you know, sitting around. So I remember going to these meetings, and the meetings were great to see other people, but there wasn't a lot of interaction. The crowds were very much just information just being thrown at us, you know, and I took both clinical and practice management. And I remember sitting in a bunch of classes with people. And when we get back to the office or when we would have dinner with other managers, I remember hearing all the time, I don't really know what they meant by that. Or maybe you can give me that explanation. And I remember thinking, I want to do a better job of that. Not that they were doing a poor job, the other speakers. That's not what I'm saying. But I thought there's got to be a way for someone to hear what's being said and have the light bulb go off. And so I started to try to do different things in the meetings, my team meetings, to make that happen. And then I realized, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to make the light bulbs go off. I want to make people feel good about the decisions that they're making. And so that's really what started. And then, of course, yes, somebody handed me a microphone and it was all over with, Andre. That's it. Once I realized that, I could get people to learn and to laugh, that was it. It was so hard for me to come to work every day because I knew there was something else out there I wanted to do.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that about the mini forks, because I think all of us have we evolve. And you said it too. I think the evolution of the person we are now and the person we were, is something that in hindsight, we all need to be able to look at. And, I reflect on a regular basis. One of the cool things as I've kind of gone through dentistry, I've created all these companies, and looking back at, the old bitmap logos that we all had in the 80s, and then look at sort of the things that, to see an evolution like that, just to look at how a company has evolved over the years and how dentistry has evolved over the years that we've been in it, and how, the role each staff member has in the practice has evolved, especially after 2020, after going through COVID. The roles in the office have shifted dramatically.
Yeah, I think there's been a realization that flexibility is probably an employee's number one trait at this point. Not just filling in other duties. I love a manager who can step in and be an assistant. That's flexibility, of course, but the flexibility in that, okay, the goal is now not just to get the patients healthy and to have making sure that our patients' oral health care comes first. But now the flexibility is expanding to, if we're not able to keep our practices open, if we're not able to serve our patients, the practice doesn't stay open, then we actually don't have a role in the public's oral health care. And that has been something that, like it or not, what we went through with COVID, we started to realize, thankfully, that dentistry is part of this overall healthcare thing, right?
Yeah.
This nebulous healthcare idea that we've always been seen as being down here, and now poof, we're part of it. And that was a really nice way to stretch the dental mind. And I saw a lot of team members who, when they stayed, because a lot, we lost a lot. The ones that stayed wanted to weather the storm. They wanted to make things better. And the ones I really respect are the ones that see opportunity. What they did was they saw, okay, this didn't work before. It was kind of not working before. Now it's really not working. Let's do this. And then the technology that you were talking about, how many of them are like running to electronic health records now? How many are running to electronic forms? All those, buts, those walls just went tumbling down. And I think the flexibility to look at new technologies and new ways of doing things and implement them quickly, that I think has been a really, really great outcome from all of this.
I always look at, when I look at the stock market or look at the other thing like that, I always look at those valleys or peaks and I go, what happened there? The stock market crash in 1929, 2008, we can see those spikes. And remember, in dentistry, the Y2K, everybody's computers are going to blow up. So everybody had to replace their computers. And I remember, people addressing problems the way that we addressed COVID in the same way, where things changed dramatically because of some spike in our timeline. And I love looking back on it. I can't imagine what's going to be like in 5 years to look back at 2020 and see how that kind of has affected us. So,
cracked me up by bringing up Y2K. For people who are young and don't understand what this is, what was it? It was like, we didn't think that the computer program could recognize anything over 1999. And so everybody was thinking that the computers would just en masse blow up. When the processor switched to 2000, people were, oh my God, how many backups did you do? We backed up everything because we were thinking everything is just going to die. We're going to have to go back to paper charts until our computer guy can get in here. People, it was a mess.
It was. The good thing was at the time I was selling software. So a lot of people were buying new computers and new software at the time. So it was a great time for me. So we're going to shift a little bit because some of the things that create those forks in the road are either life events, things that we read, things that we see, things that things that happen in our lives. So I always, one of the things I want to do in this series is kind of ask the same questions of everybody, so that I want to hear, I mean, I'd love to know what Mark Twain's favorite book was. I'd love to be able to go back and have the same question of every president, ask them that kind of thing. What was your favorite thing about being in the White House? But I'm going to ask you a couple questions. So, what is a book that everyone should be reading, and something that you might pick up again and again and again to read?
Sure.
What's your book of choice?
My probably the only business book that I would highly recommend. I mean, there's so many, don't get me wrong, but I'm not a business book reader. I'm more of a business book summary reader, just to get the highlights. But this book in particular, every year, it's How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's a classic. It's a class. I knew you would know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
I gave it to my son for Christmas before he went to college, and I'm sure he didn't read it until I asked him to read it, but here's the thing. I do read it every year. My husband and I, not together, obviously, but we reread it because wherever you are at your stage in life, you're going to pick up something from it that's different. It's going to hit you differently. And really, it's not, for people who have not read it, I highly recommend. It's an easy read. It's not one of those things where like, you must do it this, but it really just gives you guidelines. And when I first read it, I realized I see that in this person. Oh, that's what this person does. I see that. And I was realizing that I was picking out all of the things I liked about those people. And it's nothing, it's not that everyone has read this book, but you start to see those types of traits, people who are kind, people who want to genuinely hear what you have to say other than talking the whole time, and I have friends that will tell me, we don't know what's going on with you at the end of the conversation because all we did was talk about me. Well, I like that, so this is actually kind of an odd feeling for me to be interviewed and to talk about myself, because I'm so used to, for my podcast, interviewing. I want to hear about you. I want to see what makes you tick. And it's always be kind, be memorable. It's just a good book. Every year I reread it. And
you got my thumbs up on that one. That is a good one. Yeah.
Well, and from my childhood, The Little Prince is another book too.
Did you read it in French or?
My mom read it to me in French because she's French Vietnamese, but no. I'm now an English person now. So.
That's a good one.
But that one also has everyone's shelf. Really good life lessons in that one too.
It's also a great gift for a kid if you're going to a party or something like that. And kids get all kinds of toys, but that's a gift that, like you said, it'll keep coming around every time that the kid reads it. So it's a great one.
Can I mention one more?
Yeah, go
Just
for it.
One more, real quick.
Go.
There's a poem called Desiderata. And there's a key phrase in there. Well, actually, you want to talk about quotes, so maybe I'll hold on to this. But
okay.
Desiderata is a great poem that I highly recommend. But when we get to quotes, I'll tell you my one from there.
Okay, I'm gonna make sure we get back to that one. So okay, and actually that's where we're going next. So give me one or two of your favorite quotes, and I want to make sure that we get the attribution, so we'll make sure we know who wrote it. So. Give me one or two of your favorite quotes. Go for it.
So with this poem, Desiderata, it was in the 1920s, and you can find it in posters everywhere. That's how common this is, right? So this is another thing. I had it framed and posted for my son in college, and he put it up in college. I had it for my college. So it's kind of a tradition. Maybe he'll pass it on, who knows? But the one thing that stuck out to me is you have to avoid vexations of the spirit, and it's avoid loud persons. They are vexations of the spirit. And I don't mean loud yelling people. When you read things over and over again at different times in your life, they hit you differently. And I started to realize that these loud people, what the loudness were the people who were creating toxicity and drama. And to me and my brain and my emotions, those were loud. And I needed to get rid of those people. So it's okay to get rid of vexations of the spirit. I think it helps you grow, and I think it helps you be a better person for your family.
That's awesome. I love that. I've got it now. I've got a whole book of quotes. I'm going to have to find that one, put it in there. Got any other ones?
Well, the whole poem is great. I mean, there's just so many things, but the one, this is something I can't even find how to attribute it, but it makes sense to me on so many levels. It's meet people where they are. And a good friend of mine, that's his motto. And the more, I've always thought it, I've always heard it, but, to hear it applied all the time, to start thinking about it. So even as somebody who's an educator, where do I meet my people? Is it at the meetings? Is it online? Is it webinars? Is it at 8 chapter study clubs? Meet them where they are. And then when you're training, as from a manager point of view, you can't assume that they're at your level. You have to go down to their level, whatever their learning level is, experience level, meet them where they are, and then bring them up. So it has a lot of practical applications, that quote.
Yeah, and especially in this day and age, it has not only a double but a triple entendre where there's something that you really have to understand the person as you're talking to them. I love that quote. That's good. Absolutely. So, all right, let me give you a couple rapid fire things. So, what's the one high tech thing that you can't live without, and why?
I mean, it's got to be my phone, right? Because that's how I communicate with everybody. That's the answer everybody's going to give you. I don't know. Maybe the massage gun that I gave my mom for Christmas, because that's pretty high tech, right?
Now, wait a minute. You gave it to your mom, but how do you know it's
still here at the house?
Okay.
I love it.
That's a good one. And, and it's probably because of the phone and we're hunched over looking at the phone that we need the massage.
Exactly. Yeah, but definitely the phone. But honestly, I would say the high tech part is a podcast player. I'm a big podcast consumer, so I'm grateful for any podcast apps that can bring all that stuff to me.
And are you an Apple or are you a Android person?
I'm an Android. I use Castbox. It's a good one.
Okay. All right. So Android all the way here. Right?
Yeah, right. Wait, we got to meet people where they are. Don't pull away from the Apple people.
No, that one there's no forgiveness for Apple people. Everybody knows that about me. Okay. And now on the other side of that, what is the low tech? So it doesn't plug in thing that you can't live without.
My dogs. My dogs. If I don't have a dog, I don't know what I do. Like the joke is Duncans always have a dogs. If you look back through our whole family, there's always just dogs everywhere. And my husband keeps saying, okay, when these dogs go, they're the last dogs. And I'm just like, who are you? I'm not.
You're the last husband, not the last dog, right?
Yeah, I love you. What's going on here? But you got to meet me where I am. That's what I wanted to say. No, I would say the dogs, honestly, and I mean, I don't know. Does that count as low tech? They're pretty low tech.
That's very low tech. But you know what? And I always say my cats are my best consultants. Because they you ask them something, they give you the right answer all the time, and they're the best people to sound off of. Okay, so here's a little tricky one. If you had a chance to go back and make a phone call to the person standing at the fork of the road that you were, what would you tell them?
It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to be wrong. And it's okay to not be liked. It's okay. You worry so much about everybody liking you. You worry so much about never being seen as wrong because maybe that means you're stupid. That's not what it means. Being wrong is not stupid. It just means you need to come to a different conclusion in a different way. But when you're young and someone proves you wrong, you feel stupid, and it's very debilitating and it's hard to hear. So stop with that. I would say, Teresa, stop with that. You know what you're doing. Maybe you just need some help along the way.
I love that. I love that. My new approach to life is one of the people who I follow, whose name is Bert Ehrmann. He's a New Testament scholar. And what he says is if you do a Google search for the word Gehenna, which is the Greek word for what we consider hell. It really was the word Gehenna was the word that was used in the Bible. If you look up Gehenna, what you're going to see is this valley. It's the Valley of Gehenna, and it's beautiful. It looks like what you would expect Israel or Jerusalem to look like. It's really beautiful. But if anybody tells you to go to hell, understand that what they said in the Bible was Gehenna. And if you look at this, you go, okay, I'm good with that. I'll go to this beautiful valley. So I've taken this on as if anybody is really down on me, especially with the internet, I just go, they're just telling me to go to this beautiful place and I'm okay with it.
I love that. Whenever I get a negative feedback, I'm gonna be like, "Oh, where's that Gehenna place?"
There you go.
Talking about.
So this is one I didn't prep you for, but I'm going to ask you this question, and it's an easy one.
Okay.
The Teresa Duncan I know now, you got here two ways, and let me ask you: through hard work or through luck?
Luck in the beginning, then hard work to stay there. Luck in the beginning only because I landed in an office with a boss who was supportive and nurtured me. Yeah. Then hard work kicked in. So
yeah,
I would say I pushed off on luck. I pushed off on luck and got there, sailed on hard work.
I love it. See, that wasn't a hard question, was it?
Wasn't hard, but wow, made me think of things differently, right?
Yeah.
Like how much of it is luck? How much of it is being the right place at the right time? I don't, and that's kind of the beauty. I don't know if we know that right away. It doesn't hit you until later sometimes.
Yeah. And one of my quotes is labor under correct knowledge. That's luck.
Ooh, I like that.
I like that. Yeah.
I like that.
Well, I'm so glad we got a chance to do this because we talk dentistry all the time. And, when we get it, it's always like, hey, what's the code for this? Or, hey, what's going on with this insurance company? And, I'm glad we got a chance to talk about this because this is the kind of stuff I think in dentistry broadens who we are. It helps us if we get to that fork to be able to take it. And so many of the questions that you get and I get on a daily basis are people who are they're at a crossroad and they just don't know where to go next. It could just be, I don't know the right code to use. I don't know where to send this, but these are the sort of questions that maybe we should be able to help some folks with. So I'm so glad you got a chance to help me with that.
I appreciate being asked. I love it. And definitely if you're out there wondering, what do I do with this fork in the road? Listen to the rest of these videos, but you got to trust your gut, trust the people around you. And you're not going to, don't be 80, 85 years old and think, what if I just had, don't do that.
Yeah. And 85, I'm almost that age.
Stop it.
You just take another fork.
Another fork. That's the dessert fork by then. That's the good fork.
That's true. Thank you, dear, so much. And I will talk to you really soon.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.